The morning frost bites at my skin, sharp and unforgiving, as I stand atop the old loom mill, a relic of Lancaster's industrial past now transformed into something far removed from its original purpose. My breath fogs in the air as I look out over the city, the once bustling streets below quiet in the early morning stillness. The mill, with its skeletal frame of rusted beams and cracked brickwork, has become a fortress, a sanctuary, and an arsenal all in one. The workshop hums faintly beneath my feet, the low buzz of servers and the whir of fabrication machines a constant background noise in my life. The towering smokestack, now repurposed as an antenna for my array of surveillance equipment, pierces the gray sky like a sentinel. Inside, the ghosts of industry have given way to something new, a hive of innovation born of necessity and obsession. The old looms and conveyor belts were dismantled long ago, their metal bones reforged into armor plates and weapons casings. Workbenches line the cavernous interior, each cluttered with tools, components, and half-finished projects. Dozens of screens glow in the dim light of the workshop, their cold, blue light casting long shadows across the floor. The city of Lancaster is displayed in crisp detail: satellite imaging, traffic feeds, police scanners, and even environmental data like wind speed and temperature. Nothing moves in this city without my knowing. The years I've spent building this network, layering system upon system, have been grueling, but the result is something I can take pride in. My city. My rules. I crouched down to adjust the feed on one of the rooftop cameras, its lens frosted over from the bitter cold. The world below comes into sharper focus as I twist the lens, revealing the city's patchwork of old brick buildings and modern glass facades. Lancaster has a way of blending the past with the present, its cobblestone streets hiding secrets just as well as its dark alleys. The city has always been alive, breathing with its own rhythm, but now I hold its pulse in the palm of my hand. Sliding the wrench back into the holster at my hip, I glance over at a small drone hovering nearby. It's one of many, a scout I've designed to patrol the city's rooftops, blending in with the birds and the weathered architecture. Its matte black frame glints faintly in the pale light of dawn as it waits for my next command. With a quick gesture, I send it spiraling into the mist, its silent flight a comforting reminder that I am never truly alone. The frost is thick this morning, the kind that seeps into your bones no matter how many layers you wear. I wrap my coat tighter, its reinforced fabric stiff but warm. My fingers brush against the grip of the .44 Magnum at my side, a familiar weight that offers both reassurance and a reminder of the world's dangers. The weapon isn't just a tool, it's a symbol of survival, a constant companion in a city that can turn hostile at a moment's notice. Lancaster has changed over the years. The people, the buildings, even the air feels different now, heavier somehow. It's not just the crime or the corruption that festers in the shadows, it's something deeper, something that gnaws at the edges of reality itself. I've seen too much to ignore it, the cracks in the fabric of this world, the moments where logic and reason falter. My eyes drift to the skyline, where the first rays of sunlight are beginning to break through the clouds. The city stirs below, the faint hum of traffic growing as the day begins. But I know better than to trust the quiet. The calm is always temporary, a fleeting moment before the chaos begins again. My work is never done, and that's just the way I like it. I descend from the rooftop, the metal staircase creaking beneath my boots. The workshop greets me with its familiar chaos, tools scattered across every surface, sparks flying from a welding station in the corner, and the persistent hum of machinery that never truly sleeps. A half-finished suit of armor stands in the center of the room, its titanium plates gleaming under the fluorescent lights. It's a work in progress, like everything else in this place, but it's mine. As I move to one of the monitors, a red alert flashes across the screen. My pulse quickens as I bring up the feed, the camera zooming in on an alley near the city's edge. Something's moving in the shadows too fast, too fluid to be human. My fingers dance across the keyboard, pulling up additional feeds and overlays. Heat signatures confirm what I already suspect: it's not alone. The hair on the back of my neck rises as the realization sinks in. Whatever this is, it's not from around here. It's something new, something I haven't prepared for. And yet, a part of me can't help but feel exhilarated. This is why I do what I do: to face the unknown, to uncover the secrets that others fear to confront. The morning frost clings to the windows as I gear up, strapping on armor and weapons with practiced efficiency. The city below may not know it yet, but it's waking up to a new kind of threat. And I'll be there, watching, waiting, ready to meet it head on. I move with purpose, each step echoing in the vast, hollow expanse of the workshop. The red alert persists on the screen, flashing insistently as if it shares my urgency. My armor feels heavier than usual this morning, the reinforced plates cold from the frost that seeped in overnight. Each strap, buckle, and clasp clicks into place with a precision I've perfected over the years. This isn't just protection, it's a second skin, forged from every lesson I've learned and every scar I've earned. The suit hums faintly as it powers up, internal mechanisms springing to life. The HUD in my helmet activates, overlaying data across my vision. The alley near the city's edge comes into sharper focus, the thermal signatures moving erratically, almost animalistic. I tag the location and switch to infrared, the blurry figures sharpening into something more distinct. Their outlines are humanoid, but their movements are all wrong, disjointed, jerky, as if their bodies aren't entirely under their control. I grab my magnum, its weight comforting in my hand. Beside it, my rifle leans against the workbench, a custom-built piece of engineering that's as much a part of me as the armor I wear. The stock is worn from use, the barrel reinforced for precision. I sling it over my shoulder and check the magazine, armor-piercing rounds, perfect for whatever I'm about to face. The drone I dispatched earlier hovers back into the workshop, its small frame clicking into a docking station to recharge. It uploads its data to my system, the feed adding new angles and perspectives to the scene. Whatever these things are, they're not random. Their movements suggest a pattern, a deliberate search. They're looking for something or someone. My boots hit the pavement outside the mill with a muted thud, the frost crunching beneath my weight. The city is waking up now, the sounds of life trickling through the crisp morning air. I keep to the shadows, the cold metal of the alley walls pressing against me as I move. My helmet's HUD maps out the most efficient route to the alley, but I already know these streets like the back of my hand. Every shortcut, every blind corner, every hidden entrance, it's all part of my network, my domain. As I approach the location, the air feels heavier, charged with an unnatural energy that sets my teeth on edge. I pause at the edge of the alley, blending into the darkness as I scan the scene. The figures are clearer now, their forms bathed in the pale light of a flickering street lamp. There are 3 of them, their movements erratic but purposeful. Their skin, or what's left of it, is pale, almost translucent, stretched tight over angular bones that jut out unnaturally. Their eyes glow faintly, a sickly yellow that pierces the shadows. One of them pauses, its head snapping toward me with an unnatural speed. I freeze, every instinct screaming at me to stay still. Its glowing eyes lock onto my position, and for a moment, the world feels like it's holding its breath. Then it lets out a sound, a low, guttural growl that reverberates through the alley like the warning of a predator. I step forward, slow and deliberate, my magnum raised and steady. The sound draws the attention of the other 2, their heads turning in unison to face me. Up close, I can see the details now, the jagged edges of their broken teeth, the black veins that spiderweb across their skin, the way their limbs move like puppets on frayed strings. Identify yourselves, I command, my voice amplified and distorted by the helmet's speaker. They don't respond, not with words, at least. Instead, the one closest to me lunges, its movements a blur of speed and violence. I fire a single shot, the magnum's roar echoing through the alley as the round slams into its chest. The force knocks it back, but it doesn't stop. It doesn't even falter. Shit. I switch to my rifle, the magnum holstered in one smooth motion. The other 2 are closing in now, their movements synchronized like they're sharing a single mind. My finger tightens on the trigger, and the rifle spits out a burst of fire. The rounds tear through the first figure, ripping apart its chest in a spray of dark ichor, but it still keeps coming. Its eyes burn brighter, almost mocking. They're not human. That much is clear now. Whatever they were, whatever they've become, humanity is long gone from these creatures. There's something else entirely, something twisted and wrong. I retreat, keeping my movements calculated and precise. The alley opens up behind me into a larger street, and I led them there, away from the tight confines where they could easily overwhelm me. As I backpedal, I pull a small device from my belt and toss it into the alley. It beeps twice before exploding in a flash of light and sound. The creatures recoil, their growls turning into shrieks as the flashbang disorients them. The moment of reprieve is enough. I raise the rifle and fire again, this time aiming for their heads. The first goes down, its skull shattering like glass under the impact. The second stumbles, its movements erratic as its lower jaw hangs loose, broken from the blast. The third, though it doesn't stop. It doesn't even flinch. I switch to my magnum, the heavy weapon feeling almost inadequate now. But this isn't just about firepower. It's about resolve. Whatever these things are, they've invaded my city, my home, and I won't let them walk away. The last creature charges, its broken form moving faster than anything its size should be able to. I sidestep at the last second, my magnum pressed against its temple as I pull the trigger. The shot echoes through the street, and the creature collapses, its glowing eyes dimming as it falls. Silence. I stand there, my breath ragged, my heart pounding in my chest. The morning frost clings to the edges of my armor, the world around me eerily still once more. But I know this isn't over. Whatever these things are, they didn't come here by accident. Someone or something sent them. And I'm going to find out who. I crouch beside the remains of the last creature, my rifle slung over my shoulder, magnum still gripped in my hand. Up close, the body looks even less human. The skin isn't just pale, it's almost translucent, revealing sinewy tendrils of muscle and a web of black veins pulsating faintly even in death. I poke at the body with the barrel of my gun, the ichor that oozes from its wounds thick and tar-like. There's a faint, acrid smell in the air, like burning rubber mixed with decay. The alley is still now, but the tension lingers. My helmet's sensors detect no additional movement in the immediate area, but the faint charge in the air hasn't dissipated. Whatever power animated these things is still here, hanging like a storm cloud over the city. I tap a command on my wrist console, and one of my drones buzzes overhead, its camera focusing on the remains. Scan and analyze, I mutter, the words unnecessary but grounding. The drone's beam sweeps across the body, capturing every detail. My HUD begins filling with data, elevated radiation levels, unknown organic compounds, and traces of something artificial. I narrow my eyes behind the visor. Artificial. That means someone made this. Someone created these things and unleashed them here. The question is why and for what purpose? The drone chirps as it completes its scan, and I send the data back to the workshop for further analysis. For now, I need answers. I glance down the alley, my eyes tracing the path the creatures took. They weren't wandering aimlessly, they were heading somewhere. I pull up the map overlay on my HUD and tag their last known trajectory. It leads deeper into the city, toward the industrial district. Of course. If someone wanted to stay hidden while creating abominations like this, the abandoned warehouses and factories there would be the perfect cover. I stand, holstering my magnum and gripping my rifle again. The city around me is waking up, the sounds of life returning to the streets, but I can't afford to wait for backup or answers. This is my city, and whatever's happening here, it's my responsibility to stop it. The industrial district looms ahead, its skeletal structures casting long shadows in the early morning light. Rusted fences and broken windows line the narrow streets, remnants of a time when this part of Lancaster was alive with the sound of machines and workers. Now, it's a graveyard, silent except for the occasional creak of metal in the wind. I move cautiously, my senses on high alert. The HUD feeds me constant updates: ambient temperature, wind speed, radiation levels, but the readings are eerily normal. Whatever I'm looking for, it's doing a damn good job of hiding. A faint noise catches my attention, a low, rhythmic hum that vibrates through the air. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it stands out against the oppressive silence of the district. I follow the sound, weaving through narrow alleys and overgrown lots until I reach a warehouse at the edge of the district. The hum is louder now, resonating from within the building. The warehouse is massive, its rusted exterior blending into the surrounding decay. The windows are dark, and the front doors are chained shut, but the sound is definitely coming from inside. I scan the perimeter, looking for an entry point. A ventilation shaft near the roof catches my eye, the grate hanging loose. Perfect. It takes a few minutes to scale the side of the building, my gloves gripping the corroded metal with practiced ease. The ventilation shaft is narrow, but I've dealt with worse. I squeeze through, the confined space amplifying the hum as I move closer to its source. The shaft opens into a mezzanine overlooking the warehouse floor, and I finally see what I'm up against. The floor below is a maze of machinery, glowing softly with an unnatural, greenish light. Cables snake across the ground, connecting massive tanks filled with a viscous, black liquid that churns and bubbles like it's alive. Figures move between the machines, their forms shrouded in shadow, but I can tell they're not human. They move with the same jerky, unnatural gait as the creatures from the alley. In the center of the room stands a figure cloaked in darkness, their silhouette barely discernible against the glow of the machines. They raise a hand, and the liquid in one of the tanks begins to rise, forming into a humanoid shape. The hum grows louder, almost deafening now, as the figure directs the process with precise, almost ritualistic movements. I reach for my rifle, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Whatever this is, it ends now. But as I aim, the figure below suddenly stops and turns, as if sensing my presence. A pair of glowing eyes lock onto me, and a voice echoes through the warehouse, deep, resonant, and filled with malice. "I was wondering when you'd find me," it says. "You've been quite the nuisance." Before I can respond, the figures on the floor spring into action, their movements unnaturally fast as they converge on my position. The cloaked figure raises their hand, and the machinery around them surges with power. The greenish light intensifies, and I feel the air around me shift, heavy with energy. "Let's see if you're as resourceful as they say," the voice continues, a mocking edge to its tone. "Welcome to the end of your little game." The mezzanine shudders as the first wave of creatures reaches me, their claws scraping against the metal. I raise my rifle and open fire, the sound of gunfire cutting through the hum as the fight begins. The first creature lunges, a blur of teeth and claws illuminated by the muzzle flash of my rifle. The armor-piercing rounds tear into its chest, black ichor splattering the walls as it collapses with a guttural screech. But the others are relentless, surging forward with a speed and ferocity that makes my breath hitch. The mezzanine rattles beneath my feet as their claws dig into the metal, their movements erratic and unnatural. I pivot, firing in controlled bursts, each shot calculated and deliberate. The rifle is an extension of me, the recoil familiar and manageable as I take down the first wave. But they just keep coming, their numbers seemingly endless. My HUD is alight with warnings, motion detectors registering activity from every direction, the infrared overlay revealing heat signatures closing in fast. The cloaked figure below watches, unmoving, their glowing eyes tracking my every move. They're not just orchestrating this, they're testing me, gauging my responses, my limits. I don't plan to give them the satisfaction. The creatures are too close now for the rifle to be effective. I drop it to my side and draw the magnum in a single, fluid motion, the weapon's heavy frame fitting perfectly into my grip. The first shot obliterates the head of the nearest attacker, its body crumpling mid-leap. The second and third shots carve through the next two, ichor spraying across the narrow mezzanine. The remaining creatures hesitate for a split second, their glowing eyes flickering as though recalibrating. It's all the opening I need. With a swift motion, I slam a flashbang from my belt onto the ground and dive for cover, shielding my eyes just before the device detonates. The explosion bathes the mezzanine in blinding white light, and the creatures shriek in agony, clutching at their distorted faces. I take the opportunity to move, my boots pounding against the metal grating as I sprint toward the stairs leading down to the warehouse floor. My HUD tracks the creatures, their forms momentarily disoriented but already starting to recover. The cloaked figure below tilts their head slightly, almost amused. "Impressive," they say, their voice cutting through the chaos with an otherworldly resonance. "But you're only delaying the inevitable." I don't respond. Words are wasted on people like this. Instead, I grab a smoke grenade and toss it down to the floor below, the canister hissing as thick, gray clouds billow out and obscure the area. I descend the stairs quickly, keeping my movements silent and deliberate, using the cover of the smoke to mask my approach. The hum from the machinery grows louder, almost unbearable, as I near the center of the room. The tanks of black liquid pulse with a sinister rhythm, the shapes inside them writhing as though eager to be unleashed. Whatever this figure is doing, it's far from complete, but if I don't stop it now, the consequences could be catastrophic. The figure's voice calls out again, this time tinged with amusement. Hiding won't save you, little rat. I've already seen your kind fall. The words send a chill down my spine, but I push the fear aside. I've been underestimated before, and it's always worked to my advantage. I circle around the edge of the room, my magnum at the ready, scanning for an opening. Through the smoke, I spot one of the cables connecting the tanks to the machinery. Its thick, rubbery exterior pulses faintly with energy, the black liquid within it surging like a lifeline. I aim for it and fire, the magnum's round tearing through the cable. Sparks fly as the liquid splashes onto the ground, hissing and steaming as it corrodes the floor. The reaction is immediate. The cloaked figure lets out a growl, their glowing eyes flaring with anger. Fool! You don't understand what you're meddling with. Then explain it to me, I shout, my voice echoing through the warehouse as I dart toward another cable. I fire again, severing it in one clean shot. The machinery sputters, the hum faltering as the tanks begin to dim. The creatures react violently, their jerky movements becoming even more erratic as they howl and thrash about. They're connected to this part of whatever sick experiment the figure is running. The cloaked figure raises their hand, and the air around me grows heavy, suffocating. It's as though gravity itself has shifted, pressing down on me with an invisible force. I stagger, my vision blurring as I struggle to stay upright. You're meddling with forces far beyond your comprehension, the figure says, their voice resonating with power. But if you insist on being a thorn in my side, then allow me to teach you the price of defiance. The black liquid from the ruptured tanks begins to move, defying gravity as it pools together and rises into the air. It twists and coils, forming a massive, amorphous shape that pulses with malevolent energy. The figure directs it with a wave of their hand, sending it hurtling toward me like a tidal wave of darkness. I dive to the side, narrowly avoiding the onslaught as the liquid slams into the ground where I'd stood, corroding the metal and sending shards flying. My mind races, every instinct screaming at me to retreat, but I know I can't. If I leave now, this thing, whatever it is, will destroy everything I've built, everything I've sworn to protect. Gritting my teeth, I roll to my feet and fire at the figure. The magnum's round streaks through the air, but the liquid surges forward, forming a shield that absorbs the shot with ease. The figure laughs, the sound cold and hollow. You'll need more than brute force to stop me, they taunt. But by all means, try. The liquid lashes out again, a tendril snapping toward me with terrifying speed. I dodge, firing another round into one of the remaining tanks. The explosion sends a shockwave through the room, throwing me off balance but also severing the figure's connection to one of their creations. The amorphous mass flickers, its form destabilizing for a brief moment. It's enough. I reach for the EMP grenade strapped to my chest, a last resort for situations like this. Activating it, I hurl it toward the machinery. The device detonates with a piercing whine, the energy surge knocking out the remaining systems and sending the tanks into catastrophic failure. The black liquid convulses, the creatures shrieking as they collapse, their bodies dissolving into steaming pools of ichor. The cloaked figure staggers, their glowing eyes dimming as they clutch their chest. "You think you've won," they rasp, their voice dripping with venom. This is only the beginning. Before I can respond, they vanish in a swirl of black mist, leaving only the wreckage of their experiments behind. The hum of the machinery fades into silence, the warehouse now eerily still. I stand amidst the destruction, my chest heaving as the adrenaline begins to subside. The city is safe for now. But their words linger in my mind, a chilling reminder that this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The silence of the warehouse is deafening now, broken only by the faint drip of liquid and the occasional crackle of damaged machinery. The stench of burnt metal and decayed flesh clings to the air, mingling with the bitter tang of adrenaline in my mouth. I stand there for a moment, my magnum hanging limply at my side, my chest rising and falling in heavy, uneven breaths. I scan the room one last time, my HUD flickering with residual energy readings. Whatever the cloaked figure unleashed here has left its mark, not just on this place, but on me. My city is scarred now more than just a battleground, it's a proving ground for horrors I'm not sure I'm ready to face. But I don't have a choice. The creatures' remains are dissolving into the black ichor, their forms no longer recognizable. Whatever animating force controlled them is gone, leaving behind only lifeless sludge. I holster my magnum and call one of my drones back into the building, its small frame buzzing softly as it hovers above the destruction. "Log everything," I instruct, my voice flat and exhausted. The drone begins its work, scanning the scene and capturing every detail for later analysis. I know I'll spend hours poring over this data, looking for anything that might help me understand who or what that cloaked figure was. The drone chirps, signaling its task is complete, and I make my way back to the mezzanine. My body aches with every step, the weight of my armor pressing down on my weary frame. The fight wasn't just physical, it was something deeper, something that clawed at the edges of my mind. The figure's words echo in my head, "This is only the beginning." Back at the top of the staircase, I take a moment to look over the wreckage one last time. The tanks are ruptured, the machinery destroyed, but I can't shake the feeling that I've only delayed the inevitable. Whoever that figure was, they're still out there, and they'll be back. Next time, they'll be prepared. I need to be ready. The frost is thicker when I step outside, the early morning sun doing little to warm the air. The city looks peaceful, unaware of the chaos that almost consumed it. I take a deep breath, the cold biting at my lungs, and begin the long walk back to the loom mill. My mind races with plans upgrading my arsenal, fortifying my defenses, expanding my surveillance network. When I finally reach the mill, the familiar hum of the workshop greets me like an old friend. The machines and monitors blink in quiet acknowledgement as I strip off my armor piece by piece, the reinforced plates clattering onto the workbench. My body feels like it's been through hell, but my resolve is stronger than ever. I sit at my desk, the array of monitors lighting up as I bring up the drone's data. The images flicker across the screen's scans of the creatures, the tanks, the cloaked figure. I freeze the frame on their glowing eyes, a chill running down my spine as I study the faint traces of something inhuman. This isn't over, I mutter to myself, my voice barely above a whisper. As I work, I glance at the city map on the largest monitor. It's still there, still alive, still worth protecting. Whatever comes next, I'll be ready. This is my city, and no matter how deep the darkness gets, I'll fight to keep it from consuming everything. Outside, the frost begins to melt, the first rays of sunlight breaking through the gray clouds. A new day is beginning, but for me, the work never stops. It can't. Because somewhere out there, in the shadows of Lancaster, the figure is planning their next move. And when they strike again, I'll be waiting. I turn at the sound of boots echoing against the concrete floor. The hairs on the back of my neck rise instinctively, but the figure that steps into the room isn't one of those creatures. No, this is someone entirely different. He's dressed like me, in a way, but there's an air about him that feels off. His coat is patched and frayed, with symbols stitched into the fabric that seem to shimmer and shift when I try to focus on them. His face is lined with experience, his eyes dark and weary, as though he's seen more than any one person should. In his hand, he carries a notebook, worn and weathered, its pages faintly glowing at the edges. "You won't find them," he says, his voice calm yet weighted with certainty. "Not alone." I grip my magnum reflexively, but I don't raise it. "Who the hell are you?" He steps further into the room, the glow from the monitors casting flickering shadows across his face. "A Vanduke. Like you. But different." He tilts his head slightly, as if considering how much to say. "You can call me the Storyteller." The word strikes a chord, resonating deep within me. "Storyteller," I repeat, lowering the magnum slightly. "You're saying you're one of us? From the multiverse?" He nods. "From a version of it, yes. I wasn't sure you'd still be here. I thought maybe those things had." He stops himself, shaking his head. "Doesn't matter. What does matter is that they're my fault." I take a step toward him, my body tense. "Your fault? Care to explain?" The storyteller sighs, his shoulders sagging slightly. He flips open the notebook, its glowing pages illuminating his face. As he speaks, the images on the pages begin to shift, the ink rearranging itself into shapes and words that feel alive. There's a version of Earth, a timeline where humanity became its own undoing. Wars broke out over resources, technology advanced too quickly, and greed poisoned everything. The planet became inhospitable. The air itself turned toxic, the soil barren. I cross my arms, skepticism creeping into my tone. That doesn't explain them, those things. He glances at me, his eyes heavy with guilt. In that world, humanity tried to save itself. They developed technology to transfer consciousness into artificial bodies, vessels designed to withstand the planet's decay. At first, it worked. People lived longer, stronger, free of disease. But the process wasn't perfect. The transfer wasn't clean. The vessels began to break down, and so did the minds inside them. The room feels colder as he continues. What you fought out there, those are the remnants of that timeline's failure. The people in those vessels, they've been corrupted by time, by desperation, by the residue of their broken minds. I thought I could fix it. I narrow my eyes. Fix it? How? The storyteller looks away, his hand tightening around the notebook. By rewriting small fragments of their reality. I thought if I could stabilize the vessels, repair their minds, I could give that version of Earth a second chance. But reality doesn't like to be rewritten. It resists. What I created instead were them creatures caught between life and death, between human and machine. I stare at him, my mind racing to process what he's telling me. And you brought them here? To my city. He shakes his head vehemently. No, I didn't bring them. When I failed, they became unbound. They slipped through the cracks in the multiverse, drawn to places where the barriers between realities are thin. Places like this. He gestures around the room. And where there's one Vanduke, there's always the potential for others. I clench my fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. So, what? You came here to clean up your mess. He meets my gaze, his expression resolute. Yes. And to warn you. They're not just mindless abominations. They have purpose. They're looking for something that will let them stabilize and spread to other worlds. If they find it, this city, this Earth, it won't survive. My blood runs cold at the thought. And you expect me to trust you? After all this? The storyteller gives a faint, almost sad smile. You don't have to trust me. But you'll need me. These creatures, this corruption, they're not something you can fight with bullets and brute force. If you want to stop them, you'll need someone who can rewrite the rules. Bend reality in ways they can't predict. I hesitate, the weight of his words sinking in. Fine. But you don't call the shots here. This is my city. We play by my rules. He nods. Agreed. I turn back to the monitors, their screens still filled with flickering images of the warehouse carnage. If they're looking for something, we need to figure out what. And fast. The storyteller steps beside me, his glowing notebook held tightly in his hands. Then let's get to work. Outside, the frost has begun to melt, but the shadows in the city seem darker than ever. The fight isn't over. It's only just begun.